Hey, class. We are still talking about the 1970s through 2000s or 1970s, 1980s. We're talking about Mount St. Helens eruption today that took place in 1980. Uh, it was one of the biggest eruptions in the history of the United States, and it was one of the biggest landslides that took place before the eruption in the history of the world. So, or one of the most biggest recorded landslides. So that's what we're talking about today. Mount St. Helens. Did they know about it before it happened? Yes, it wasn't like Pompeii or anything. They did know it was going to happen, and so and what kind of destruction it did when there's lots of natural disasters that's happened in this time period from 1900 to present that we've talked about so far in the this course. So here we go. On May the 18th, 1980, a volcano in Washington State named St. Helens erupted. This is the picture of the eruption here. It was the largest volcanic eruption in the continental United States since 1915. As a giant plume of ash that rose from the eruption, it made the skies dark in eastern Washington, and it spread across much of the United States and Canada. When was it? On May 18, 1980, a volcano in Washington State named Mount St. Helens erupted. It was the largest volcanic eruption in the continental United States since 1915. A giant plume of ash rose from the eruption, darkening much of eastern Washington, and spreading across much of the United States and Canada. All right, so Mount St. Helens is located in southwest Washington State. So it's located in Washington State. It's around 90 miles from Seattle, and it's part of the Cascade Mountain Range. The Cascade Mountain Range is a part of a bigger geological feature that's called the Ring of Fire, and the Ring of Fire surrounds the Pacific Ocean. It's made up of hundreds of volcanoes. So the Cascade Mountain Range is in Washington State. Where is Mount St. Helens? Mount St. Helens is located in southwest Washington State, around 90 miles south of Seattle. It is part of the Cascade Mountain Range. The Cascade Mountain Range is part of a bigger geological feature called the Ring of Fire. The Ring of Fire surrounds the Pacific Ocean and is made up of hundreds of volcanoes. All right, so did they know it was going to erupt? Yes, they had a pretty good idea it was going to erupt. It was not like Pompeii, where nobody knew what was going on. They just thought it was the gods or something. Okay, this is 1980, not 790 or whatever that was. Okay, 79 AD. All right. They didn't know exactly when it was going to, but they did know it was going to erupt. The first sign was increased earthquake activity in March of 1980. And throughout March and April, the mountain became more active. They had steam eruptions that would happen. In April, they had a large bulge out of the side of the mountain, all right, and on the north side of the mountain of the volcano. And at this point, geologists knew the eruption would likely occur very soon. Did they know it was going to erupt? Geologists had a pretty good idea that the volcano was going to erupt. They didn't know exactly when, however. The first sign was an increase in earthquake activity in March of 1980. Throughout March and April, the mountain became more active, including several steam eruptions. In April, a large bulge appeared on the north side of the volcano. At this point, geologists knew the eruption would likely occur soon. All right. So on May the 18th, there was a large magnitude earthquake, and it shook everything. It shook the whole area. This caused the north side of the mountain to collapse. And as you can see right here in this picture, this is where the mountain collapsed. And it caused a big landslide, a giant landslide. And it was one of the largest landslides recorded in history, not just in the United States, but in history. Giant massive earth slid at the speed of over 100 miles per hour, and it wiped out everything in its path. The landslide hit Spirit Lake that was next to the mountain, and it caused 600-foot waves. The north face collapses. On May 18th, a large magnitude 5.1 earthquake shook the area. This caused the north side of the mountain to collapse. The majority of the north side of the mountain turned into a giant landslide. It was the largest landslide in recorded history. The giant mass of earth slid at the speed of over 100 miles per hour, wiping out everything in its path. The landslide hit Spirit Lake next to the mountain, causing 600-foot waves. All right, so a few seconds later, after the landslide, the north side of the mountain, it exploded in this giant eruption. Right here's the landslide, and it just exploded right after that. There was a lateral blast, which means it went this way instead of up and down. All right, lateral blast, and it shot gases and debris out of the side of the mountain at over 300 miles per hour. So if you were in its path, you were not coming back. You can't outrun a 300-mile-an-hour blast. You can't outrun a 100-mile-an-hour landslide either, not unless you got a very fast car and a lot of open highway. So the blast burned and blew away everything in its path. Around 230 square miles of forest were destroyed. If you look at all this here, look at all this destruction. These are pictures from it, and that's the landslide right there. The eruption. A few seconds later, after the landslide, the north side of the mountain exploded in a giant eruption. A lateral blast shot superheated gases and debris out of the side of the mountain at over 300 miles per hour. The blast burned and blew away everything in its path. Around 230 square miles of forest were destroyed. All right, so then a giant plume of volcanic ash also formed in the air above the mountain. It took the shape of a mushroom cloud, and it rose about 15 miles in the air, about 80,000 feet in the air. The volcano continued to spill out ash for the next 9 hours. Much of eastern Washington was plunged into darkness as the ash spread around. There goes the mushroom cloud ash, and that was it coming out that day. Eruption continued. A giant plume of volcanic ash also formed in the air above the mountain. The balloon took the shape of a mushroom cloud that rose to around 15 miles, 80,000 feet in the air. The volcano continued to spew ash for the next 9 hours. Much of eastern Washington was plunged into darkness as the ash spread. All right. So how much damage did this do? It did billions of dollars, okay? $1 billion of damage. All right. It was the most economically destructive volcano in the history of the United States. Like I said, it caused over $1 billion of damage. Around 200 houses were destroyed. 57 people were killed by the blast. There were roads, bridges, railways several miles around the mountain were also destroyed. Ash covered a lot of eastern Washington. Airports had to shut down. People had to dig out large piles of ash. Around 900,000 of ash had to be removed from the roads and the airports. 900,000 tons. How much damage did it do? The Mount St. Helens eruption of May 18, 1980 was the most economically destructive volcano eruption in the history of the United States, causing over $1 billion of damage. Around 200 houses were destroyed and 57 people were killed by the blast. Roads, bridges, and railways for several miles around the mountain were also destroyed. Ash covered much of eastern Washington. Airports had to shut down and people had to dig out of large piles of ash. It's estimated that around 900,000 tons of ash had to be removed from roads and airports. All right. So has it erupted since 1980? Yes, it has. It's erupted several more times throughout 1980, and then it calmed down. And then there were some small eruptions up until about 1986. It went quiet again, it went dormant again, and in 2004, Mount St. Helens became active again and was active with small eruptions through 2008. So right now, we haven't had any major ones like the 1980 eruption, but it is still active as of today, I believe. Has it erupted since? The volcano erupted several more times throughout 1980 and then calmed down. There were small eruptions until 1986 when the mountain went quiet. In 2004, Mount St. Helens became active again and was active with small eruptions through 2008. All right, comprehensive questions. In what state is Mount St. Helens located? A, Washington State, B, North Carolina, or C, Virginia? It is A, Washington State. Ding, ding, ding. We have a winner. Number 2, what year did the large eruption at Mount St. Helens occur? Was it A, 2019, B, 1980, or C, 3019? It was B, 1980s when this occurred. Ding, ding, ding. We have a winner. Number 3, which side of the mountain collapsed at the start of the eruption? A, the south side, B, it didn't collapse, or C, the north side? It was C, the north side of the mountain is what collapsed at the beginning of the eruption, and it caused this big, huge landslide. Ding, ding, ding. We have a winner. Number 4, what mountain range is Mount St. Helens a part of? A, the Cascade Mountains, B, the Rocky Mountains, or C, the Blue Ridge Mountains. It is part of the Cascade Mountains. Ding, ding, ding. We have a winner. Which is a part of the bigger ring of fire that surrounds the Pacific. Number 5, what was the cost of the damage? A, about $1 billion, B, nothing, or C, $1 million. It was A, $1 billion, about what the cost of the damage was. We have a winner. All right, folks, that is all for this one. I will see you back next time. You all have a very, very good day.